an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Season 3, Episode 9, Nathaniel Gets the Message. In this episode, Rebecca does indeed dump Nathaniel, and I really can honestly say I've never been prouder of her. Nor have I ever been happier with the outcome of a breakup, because now him and Josh are buds and I am about it. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Megan for commissioning this episode. This is my first recording since I have come back from vacation. Well, Rashawn and I tried to record Song of Ice and Fire last night. You guys will hear what happened there because the first part of it will be published and it's amazing. I won't spoil you, but it's very funny. But anyway, so this is a really good episode to come back to. Y'all know that like the last episode was one that it was probably my least favorite that the show has done so far. And so I was a little bit concerned, I think that Owen looked up the IMDb rating and that episode was rated really low by most people. So that kind of gave me a bit of confidence that like, if it was one of the lowest rated, that means that others are much higher and probably it's a nadir for the show as a whole. Because, it's really hard as you get further into a story. It just often happens that a series that goes on for a while, they sort of run out of things to do. And I don't think that's happening at all here. But I started to worry, well, maybe Rebecca sort of like moving on from the Josh thing is going to leave them a little bit aimless and they aren't really going to know how to handle telling any other type of story. I didn't really think that because it seems like they have really worked hard on developing a full cast of characters here. So I wasn't genuinely worried about it, not really, but it crossed my mind. It's impossible when you hit a bad episode that seems to line up with the what's the word? Completion, I guess, of a major arc of a story. And that episode isn't great. It's really hard to not see that as cause and effect, But like I said, I think that TV shows that seem to run out of story after one or two seasons and not really know what to do are often TV shows that are incredibly plot driven and not very character driven. They just don't really they have a plan for exactly how things are supposed to go. They have their characters do the things that they're supposed to do. And then they don't really have anything after that because the characters aren't full people who would make certain decisions on their own. And this show has worked very hard to give everybody, even those who are not like the main players in the narrative, a full personality. It's the sort of thing where if you were given one of those character sheets where you have to answer like what people's favorite colors or favorite foods are, you could do that with most of the people on this show and probably be pretty accurate because we've gotten to know a lot about all of them, which is what makes the friendship. I hope it's real friendship and that this is like a permanent thing between Nathaniel and White Josh so satisfying. We've gotten to know them both enough that the fact that they become buds in this way does make some sense. I will say, though, that I am standing by my initial frustration with the fact that the show has made Nathaniel super likable. I want there to be more of that, like, douchebag edge to him, especially if he continues to hang out with White Josh. White Josh would be one of the people to really call him out on that. White Josh is very judgmental, as we have seen, and not afraid to say shit. And I would enjoy a lot if Nathaniel attempted to, like, pull that personality back on as a bit of a, like, oh, what's the word? Defense mechanism, I guess? Like, it's something that he does when he's feeling unsure of himself. And it feels like after a breakup would be the perfect time for him to try and fall back on that. And it would be the perfect time for White Josh to be like, dude, I've got to know you, and I know this isn't it. What are you doing? This is shitty. You seem shitty, and I like you. And right now I don't like you, and I feel like there's something going on. I would enjoy it. And maybe that will wind up happening because the end of the episode has Nathaniel deciding that he is going to take a girl home. And I don't know if that's, you know, going to be of any particular significance or if it's just a signal that they are in different places with the way they're choosing to handle it from here on out. But I do want there to be a little bit more of the guy with questionable decisions and values. I would like for him to make an appearance again. That can't just vanish and never have happened. You know, there has to be some reference to it because we all saw who he was. So I'm going to start at the beginning here. I wanted to just talk about that out of the gate. But the episode picks up right where the last one left off, which is Rebecca standing at the door of Nathaniel's apartment, and he asks her to come in, which she does. I kind of didn't think she would. And he clearly, it's a similar thing as with White Josh and Daryl, that each of them didn't realize what was happening as it was happening. It wasn't until somebody finally was like, so, we are breaking up, that they were like, oh, wait, what? Is that what's happening? And again, I really, really enjoy that is what... I'm sorry. I know how it is with TV and the people that we see as being like socially above other people based on their looks, based on their success. And I just love the fact that White Josh and Nathaniel both get dumped and that everybody around them is reacting in a similar way as to what viewers were probably feeling in some ways. Like, wow, that doesn't seem like something that you would have to worry about. Really? There's even a conversation that Nathaniel and Josh have at the beginning of their chatting with each other at the bar, where they are each trying to tell the other that it's clear it was a mutual breakup because nobody would dump either of them because that just doesn't happen to them. Now, it's one of those things that, because Rebecca starts off this chat with him saying that she has to do something really hard that she's never had to do before. And I'm assuming when she says she's never had to do it, she just means breaking up with anybody. Because evidently, Rebecca is one of those people that she, as we find out later, the concept of love has been such an obsession for her that she has been more focused on keeping a relationship going because she wants the relationship than she has been on whether it's a good relationship that really should be sustained. So she doesn't do the dumping because she is always willing to sacrifice whatever needs sacrificing, to work through whatever needs working through in the name of preserving this relationship. Really, we know it's in the name of preserving her feeling of what the relationship is, or so she thinks, versus what it actually is to the person that she is in it with. Their views on it don't really seem to factor in with her a whole lot. So this is totally new ground for her. Now, I don't know about y'all and your history with relationships and being the dumper, being the dumpy. I've always been the dumper. Every time. I think I've been dumped once, and I don't even know if it really counts because it wasn't so much a dump as like we made out. I was very into him. He was super funny and very smart. And he kind of was like, yeah, I don't think so, actually. I'm not seeing it. And I was devastated because it was just a rejection before anything even got started. But I don't feel that I've been in a proper relationship and actually been dumped ever. I'm always the one. And part of me has always seen that as a bit of like, it's like a double-sided coin. On the one hand, I've been weirdly proud of it, that I've never been dumped. On the other hand, that's a red flag, right? Like, I'm always the one to be like, nah, I don't think so, and to bail. And it's weird also to have that combined with being like a serial monogamist in a lot of ways, to get into very serious relationships, but then be the one that ends them. And I don't know if it's just the fact that I'm so much more willing to cut my losses really early if I don't get as attached as other people or what. But it's being dumped is something that I don't really think I've ever quite gone through, really. I went through my divorce and it was mutual in that we both knew we needed to break up, but I was the one who moved on and was like talking to somebody already. So the fact that Josh, and I'm just going to call him Josh because he's the like foremost Josh of this episode rather than just calling him White Josh every time. Unless he's in a scene with other Josh, in which case I will say White Josh. The fact that White Josh and Nathaniel both don't really know how to deal with having been dumped really is something that I understand. I don't know what I would do either. Like, it's just such an odd situation to be in when you are... It's not even just that you're not used to having been dumped. It's that you are so not used to it that you don't even really get that that's what happened. Like, I definitely believe that they're lying to themselves about, like, they know they've been dumped. But I think that there's a part of their brain that really doesn't know, that hasn't caught up because there's no context for this having happened before. And so they don't know how to, like, talk about that. And this scene with Rebecca being like, I don't know, I've never done this before. And then she's like, oh, no, I'm not breaking up with you. I'm just saying that we can't hang out or talk on the phone or make out or have sex or do things together anymore. And then she begins to realize, oh, that is dumping. Shit. Yikes, girl. But honestly, like I said at the start of this, I have never been prouder of her as a character. This is a major breakthrough that she has had, realizing that she doesn't know how to be in a relationship without becoming obsessed with the other person. And when I talk about never having been the dumpee, I wonder sometimes if that's not also sort of my problem, except that I am more of a like pursuer than Rebecca is. So I grow obsessive in a relationship, but as soon as I feel that beginning to wane, I decide this is mostly over. And I feel that the obsession is what the relationship should be, rather than realizing that the obsession is actually not healthy. The relationship should be more than just putting somebody on a pedestal and being like completely wrapped around them. And I haven't had a good, healthy idea of a cooperative relationship in which I am a partner with somebody. So I think that I do the opposite, even though my MO in terms of getting obsessed with the other person is very similar. I just have an extremely different reaction to it, which is rather than clinging on when it seems like that isn't working out, I'm like, oh, the obsession thing is kind of like waning, or it doesn't have the effect that it did. And so I'm done, because I don't think that this is really like paying off anymore. That high that she talks about, where she's like, Nathaniel tries to argue his case as he would, as he is a lawyer. He says, isn't this therapy that you're going through supposed to be about being a happier person with like a better, more balanced life? We're happy. Why can't we just be happy? And she says, it's not real. It's a high. And that got me so hard. Absolutely. And I think that's what has cemented me realizing when I'm with Owen that it's different, is that it's a gentler feeling that is just as strong. I am so in love with him that it's just super gross, but it doesn't have that, like, it hasn't taken on like this fairy tale quality, and it never really had that. Maybe a little bit in the very beginning, but I don't have the ridiculous out of body sort of high, and yet the love is still very much there. And like, there are just so many times throughout the day, if I'm with him, that I will just turn and like look at him and just be like, oh my God, like, look at this guy. I do it constantly, but it's not the way that it has been with other guys, where it is, I need I need something that's like tangible proof that we're together. I need constant validation from you that you are like super interested in me, and not just like interested, but I need you to tell me that you think that I am the most beautiful, the most interesting, the funniest. I need to be the best on every like tier for you. And I need you to always tell me that. And I'm going to always be like working really hard to keep things going at this like completely unsustainable level. So when she said that it's just this high, it's not real, I really wondered what it was like for Nathaniel to hear that, because Nathaniel is obviously, he is feeling like this is real. When she says that, that's really the moment that for him, he steps back and is like, wait a minute, are we breaking up? And I wonder what it would be like if I really thought that things were going well with somebody, to hear from them that they didn't actually think this was legit. Because I feel like that would be crushing, you know? I don't know. That line for me rang so true from her, but also so harsh and so like unintentionally devastating in its way. And I just don't, I'm super proud of her for seeing this and saying the truth, because I think that was the only way this was going to, like, this scene would work. I love the fact that she is able to be this honest with Nathaniel, and I love that Nathaniel is so involved and so supportive of her therapy and everything, that even though this is a terrible moment for him, he's still thinking about it in those terms. He's still saying like, well, in regard to your recovery, I loved that that was like where his mind went, you know? So there's a part of me that's like, maybe they can return to this at some point when she feels a little bit more stable and able to like do a relationship in a way that's more measured and taken a little bit slower. But I really don't know what that even looks like. You know, she is like, how do you see that you're beginning to go down the obsession path before you've done anything really wild? And she's been warned by people. She got warned by her therapist. She got warned by people in group that she sounded obsessive and she wasn't hearing them. Will she hear somebody in the future warn her about that if it happens again? I really, really don't know. It's one thing to like realize after the fact, oh yeah, y'all were right. It's another thing to make yourself open to that kind of feedback again and handle it differently this time, So she dumps him, and he's obviously just like stunned. And then she goes to her therapist and says that, I'm incapable of being in a relationship. I'm not ready to go back to work, so I have nothing to do all day. And she talks about how yesterday she threw out all her old spices and bought new ones. I don't even cook. I just smelled them all, and I tried to smoke the marjoram. So her therapist recommends maybe using the time she has on her hands to do some volunteer work. And he says that a lot of his patients find that sort of thing really rewarding. And I thought this was a really great idea. It was something that, I struggle a lot with the idea that Rebecca doesn't have to work. We find out later, after she does her own checkbook balancing, that she's got $300 or something left in her bank account. So she's not going to be able to sustain this for much longer. But the idea that she can say, I'm not ready to go back to work, and that's just fine. She doesn't have to go back to work. I can't really grasp it, guys. Being able to live that way is just so... privilege is the word that I want to use, but it doesn't feel adequate at all. You know what I mean? So she's looking into some different volunteering opportunities, and nothing is quite speaking to her. I have looked into volunteer. There was a period in my life where I was only able to find part-time work, and I decided to volunteer instead because I wanted to be doing something. And there is a lot out there that just didn't interest me. So I understood a lot why, it takes her a while to find something, because everything that she's looking at, she's just this seems really hard. This seems not fun. A lot of things don't sound fun, and then you get into them and it actually is rewarding and fun in its way. But she eventually winds up seeing that Valencia needs some help with her business. She's still trying to do the wedding planning, party planning business, and offers to help Valencia. Now, I don't want to skip over the song that happens right after this meeting with her therapist, because this is actually a pretty good one. It's about how much love has ruined everything. The focus on love could have been, all of that energy could have been put towards doing good things for humanity. And how much she wishes that she had invested that time in something worthy rather than a bunch of failed, stupid relationships that didn't actually go anywhere. And honestly, that is so good a point. That is such a good point. We just spend so much of our lives as human beings chasing relationships. And I think it's a natural human instinct, because we want to be with people that understand us and share things with people who love us and are interested in the same things. That's just an instinct as a human being. But certainly culturally as well, we just have this ingrained being with a romantic partner is just seen as if you've got that, you've arrived, and you're all set. As long as you're in a relationship, you're probably on the right track with life. And it's just such a ridiculous, why do we think that? It's no good. So yeah, and I love the fact that she is singing this, and then eventually all of her friends show up, and they're all sort of going through their own things that we already know about. So the fact that they each show up talking about how love is bullshit and shouldn't be a factor, it feels very appropriate to most of them in their own way. So this is when we cut to Josh and Josh. And they're at home base. And I love both of them. Not really being quite in touch with reality. So White Josh is trying to say that the breakup was mutual. Josh laughs at him and does the air quotes with his fingers and says everyone knows there's no such thing as a mutual breakup. And White Josh is continuing to argue with him. And eventually Josh takes his wallet out and begins to pay for his drinks. And it's really amazing that, like, as he's taking his wallet out, White Josh is taking his out, clearly assuming he is going to have to pay for their drinks and stuff. And, like, grabs the check that the waitress puts down, and Josh pulls it away from him. And he says, "Since when do you have money?" And Josh says, "I got a job." And he pulls out a wad of ones. And I instantly was like, this bitch is stripping. Now, it turns out he's not stripping, he's go-go dancing, which isn't quite the same. But I was delighted because after last episode where he is trying to do the, like, Coyote Ugly bartender thing, I said something about how he would do really well at a gay bar because he obviously loves the flair and he's super cute and he would just, like, clean up in tips and stuff. Evidently, I was dead on. Guys, look, I'm going to fast forward a tiny bit. Josh is... So, he's dressed in this show in such an ordinary way. Most of the time. And just has this sort of, like, whatever vibe to him. That feels very boyish and childish. A lot of the time. And I've known that the man is in shape because he has to be in order to pull off the things that he does. But when he strips down on that stage at the end of this episode, my jaw almost hit the fucking floor. This dude is ripped like a comic book character. Like, thick with, like, 6 C's at the end. Holy shit, I didn't realize. I didn't know. I mean, I don't know if he just hasn't been in quite this intensive shape in other seasons, or if they just never really, like, showcased how he looks in the way that, because they have him dancing in his underwear eventually. But, I mean, he was more jacked easily than Nathaniel. But he was even more jacked than White Josh, who is, like, the standard on this show for the jacked guy. And he's just so much more jacked than him. I wasn't ready for it at all. I was just, like, enjoying the show, enjoying Nathaniel and White Josh. I was finding it very fun and great. And Josh comes on the stage, and I was kind of like, well, Josh is actually in great shape, too, so this makes sense. And then he, like, I saw him, like, do the body roll. And I was like, oh, wow, the abs. Shit, okay. But then when he took the pants off and you see, like, each muscle in his thighs, I just... I was shook. Okay. Lauren in the chat says, same. I love that. I haven't gotten any chit-chat in this until I talk about these dudes in their underwear. It's understandable. I'm not mad at you. But we'll get to that because it's just so good. And, yeah, he says, I'm a fireman, a volunteer fireman. And I'm like, dressed as one, maybe. I just, like, you immediately know, right? I feel like most of us probably figured out, I'm a fireman, and he's holding a handful of ones. I think we all knew what that fucking meant. It just takes a while until we get to the reveal of it. But it becomes more and more obvious as the episode goes on exactly what's happening here. And what he winds up talking to Father Bra a little bit later and says essentially how frustrated he is at the fact that all of his friends seem to know what they want to do with their lives. Now, I don't know about Hector. Do we know what Hector wants to do with his life? I feel like that's something that we don't... Like, maybe the thing is that Hector knows he doesn't really want to do much of anything. Except, like, continue to live with his mom and just be the guy that he is. But I really get Josh's feeling here. as somebody who only just came into their own in terms of their career in the past couple of years, and it's a career that just straight up did not exist when I was in college, it was really hard feeling like I'm extremely like good at talking to people. I'm a good performer. I'm good at analyzing things. I'm thoughtful about stuff. What does that do? And it was always like customer service shit or sales or what. And I was just like, that's not, I don't want to have to sell. Like, that sucks. And then it was, oh, well, maybe you should be on the stage. You should perform. And I was like, that's like such an uncertain life. I didn't want to do that either. And it was hard to watch all of my other friends finishing school, getting degrees, getting jobs related to those degrees, mostly if things went well, and still kind of being like lost myself. I didn't finish school because I wasn't feeling it, and it was costing a lot of money. So it was just like, why would I keep doing this if I'm not into it? And you just start to feel like you're being left behind by people who are actual grown-ups, and you don't know what to do. And it was extra hard because I was married to Brendan, who clearly felt that I wasn't getting serious about like any jobs because I just didn't want to work. It was clear that he saw me as somebody who was kind of lazy. And looking back now, I just can't help but laugh because I'm anything but lazy. It's simply that I wasn't getting the payoff from putting a ton of work into certain jobs, and I was resentful of the fact that I was being asked to like give my life up for a barista job that paid me $11 an hour if I was lucky. And he was somebody who got really lucky and fell into, by accident, an amazing career that paid insanely well and was very interesting and fun. And he didn't understand what it was like for somebody like me who just wasn't quite sure. And so there was no place to direct the energy that I had inside me that I was willing to invest, but I just didn't know where to put it. So I tried a bunch of different things thinking maybe this is it, maybe that's it. And he got very impatient with that. And that was a big part of what like fostered the resentment in the foundation of our relationship that wound up leading to us getting divorced. And I think about that and just, you know, there was no way for me to know this was where I was going to be. And it took so long to even get here that I don't know, even if I was aware I could get here at all, that there would have been the patience there to see me through. That was one thing that like I owe so much to Owen for being really supportive as I got my feet under me with this, because he trusted I was doing what I could to make it happen. And he would be like, he would support me and keep me a roof over my head while I did it. So Josh is like, you know, the fact that he has been asked to move out of his parents' place and he doesn't really have a direction to go in, it's extra scary. And I identify with that in some ways, even though I am super impatient with the fact that it's taking him so long to even look at this reality, to really admit to himself that he isn't headed in any particular direction. So anyway, there's this whole subplot with Daryl, trying to get an egg and get the money together to get an egg. He finds out that he's got like super sperm, which basically like, shoot right through an egg. This is like a joke from Community. This is a genuine, but yeah, he says, I can't afford another egg. They're so expensive. I've already sold my whole Southwestern collection. I considered moving on to my Southeastern collection, but that's really just a Miami Vice t-shirt and a stuffed moccasin snake. So he gets involved in this, after hours. It's a poker game that is so, guys, I've never played, I played poker like once. I was not good at it. That's a story for another time. But I really do not understand the game. And I've tried to play and get it before, for the sake of some friends and a boyfriend that played and wanted me involved. It did not work out. I won't get into it. But he winds up having beginner's luck and then gets cocky, bets everything, and loses. And is devastated by this. And in the end, the thing that Rebecca decides to do as a gesture of goodwill is to donate her egg, because she just figures she's not using it. Whatever. She doesn't really have to do any of the work to, like, you know, gestate the child or give birth or raise the child. So she doesn't seem to think that this is going to be a big deal. But she does have to do like hormone therapy and stuff. I'm really curious how this works exactly, because like I would assume that the cost of getting the egg out and implanting it is really what's expensive. I didn't think it was the egg itself that was expensive. So does her volunteering her egg actually save him money? Like, I wouldn't think that would actually matter, but I don't know. We'll see. I guess that what we're going to be coping with coming up is her having to, well, first of all, she's going to need to start working again pretty soon. I am assuming that she'll be able to just like get her job back, but I don't know if they're going to be cool with that. Like, and also, would she want to like go back and work for her ex, who's her boss now? Like, it's cute when when everything's going well, but do you walk back into that situation after you just dumped a person? And would he want her working for him? Cause you know, obviously she goes to Daryl and asks for a job back. 100% Daryl's giving her a job back. Like, that's not even a question. Nathaniel, I feel like, would want to give her job back and want to be cool with it and pretend like he was cool with it. And then it would very clearly turn out that he was not cool with it. But I don't know if she's even going to want to try and go back there at all. She might try and do something new. But I feel like the other thing we're going to see is her dealing with the hormone treatments and stuff. So I'm interested. I am curious what that's going to be like. We also get this whole thing with Mrs. Hernandez. Is that her name? Who turns out to be like a real gossip and talks about everybody's like personal shit. I don't really know how I feel about the turn her character has taken, because she's sort of turned into the person who does or says whatever we need for the punchline of that scene. And so by turn, she's like very snarky or bitchy or knows whatever needs or whatever. I don't feel like I have a good grip on who she is. That's not to say that, like, continuing on with the character who her whole thing is that she never talks, I don't feel like that's great either. They had to do something to give her opportunities to actually have lines, because come on. But I don't really know how I feel about the way that she's gone. Like, it's an interesting thing to have her be an unexpected gossip, but it does, like, the fact that she didn't talk for like the first almost full 2 seasons, it was like a season and a half at least. How was that happening? It feels like there was just this about face that happened, that it was a very sudden break, and I don't know. It just doesn't, I don't get it. But yeah, she's the one who winds up getting all of Daryl's money. So, all right, we cut to, I'm going to talk first about Rebecca volunteering to help Valencia. She is going to pose as Valencia's paid assistant but she's volunteering really, in order to make Valencia look a little bit more legitimate and like more successful, because she's got so many clients that she needs an assistant managing them. And she's got somebody that she can like send to do errands and yada, yada, yada. So this does look really great for her to have somebody that's like standing by. And the whole idea that Rebecca has here is pretty good. Megan says it was implied that Rebecca just ignored her until she yelled at Rebecca after Paula's abortion. Oh. I guess I do remember that. She says, I talk all the time. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. Okay. I guess. I don't know. It doesn't really quite work for me, but what can you do? So they have their first meeting with these clients who are planning a budget engagement party. And, it's the dude from the grocery store who dusts the potatoes. I can't remember his name. I can't remember either of their names. If you guys want to help me out with these. This dude is very much into the same girl that he was into, who was paying him no attention. And she had just gotten off a breakup, and this dude just happened to be there. And she was like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. And it's really obvious, looking at the two of them, that she is not into him at all. Like, it's not even just she doesn't love him like he loves her. It doesn't feel like she even likes him, which Rebecca says a little bit later. And so Rebecca begins to have pangs of guilt about volunteering to do something that's nice and good for the world, and instead enabling this like obviously doomed and toxic relationship between people who are bad for each other. So she starts to tell Valencia how she's feeling. Marty, thank you, Megan. And Valencia is essentially like, oh my God, that is so not any of your business. I'm trying to get this business off the ground, which you said you would help me with. And whether or not this couple works out is their deal. We are here to do our job that they hired us for, and that's all you need to know. And Rebecca can't get past it. This is something interesting that I would like to be explored more. The idea that once you go to therapy and you begin to recognize your patterns and you begin to see the things that you did and realize the mistakes you made, you start to also become hyper aware of the mistakes and patterns in other people. And you want so much for them to see what you are seeing about yourself. And you want, in some ways, it's you trying to save them the pain you went through. You know what is about to happen because it's very predictable a lot of the time, which is why everybody around you is telling you. And you're hoping that because you have the actual experience, that you're not just somebody saying this person doesn't like you because they have like some other agenda as your friend, or, this is you saying this as somebody who has been in this exact situation. So you think maybe they'll hear me. Maybe they'll really believe it when I say it versus when other people say it. And she obsesses over this. And eventually spots this girl, his fiance, outside taking a selfie, sending it to Beverage Dude, and then telling him over the phone at their engagement party, you're late, and bring somebody so it doesn't look suspicious. And later, Rebecca catches the two of them making out, like behind a curtain at this event. Like, she's super, super not discreet about this at all. And I kind of wondered as this progressed, I was like, she's so not discreet. He has to know already, right? And that turns out to be exactly what it is. He knew she was cheating already, and he didn't care because he was willing to take what he could get. He didn't think that she would be with him any other way. She made him really happy, and he's just like, it's fine. Now, I have to question, he says he's written a bunch of like sad, terrible soda-themed love songs, which is amazing. If she really does make him happy, because he says that. But then you're out here like, you know, lamenting in these ballads about how you're being two-timed. That doesn't feel like she's making you happy, dude. Meanwhile, she's saying, no, I don't really like him that much, but I want to be married. All of my friends are married, which is just so deeply something I don't understand. I have never given a shit about my other friends' like marital statuses versus mine. Career stuff, definitely I've cared about because I want to also feel like I'm on the right track to eventually being stable in my life and doing something I care about. So in that respect, yes, but I've never, ever, ever been concerned about being the single one or been somebody who's like, well, my friend is single and obviously that must make her unhappy. So I'm going to try and hook her up with somebody. It's never been a thing. Rosalie commented, this is what happiness feels like. I forgot about that. Yeah, maybe he doesn't even know what that is. I can relate to that, though. Like, if you don't know, you think that something that's just in general making you feel, like, pretty good most of the time is enough until you actually experience, like, genuine happiness. And then you're like, oh, that's what you meant? So, yeah, she, like, tries to out this girl in front of everybody in order to save this dude some trouble. But instead, she just winds up humiliating him because he already knew. And it's a really, like, terrible moment because not only has she not helped this guy and embarrassed him in front of everybody, but she has ruined Valencia's, like, business here because she's allegedly Valencia's actual assistant who has decided to cause this scene. It's a really bad, it's awful. And like later on, she's talking about it to Daryl and she says, Valencia says she forgives me, but she has had to forgive me so many times that I'm starting to really wonder like how many more times she's going to be able to do that. And that really is something that like when you have fucked up and you know that it's happened before, you start to be like, how much longer can I possibly like rely on this person just loving me and their goodwill, you know? And I do love too how she says, I wish, like, I'm going to warn him like I wish somebody had warned me, and everybody being like, we all warned you so many times. And she doesn't remember it that way because she wasn't hearing them. So I'm going to duck back again and we're going to talk about White Josh and Nathaniel for the rest of this episode, pretty much. So they see each other across the bar and they're each eating fries, which they both don't want to admit that they ordered. It's such a good intro. And they both are trying to convince themselves that their breakups were mutual and that other people don't get it. And eventually it comes around to them realizing that this comfort food doesn't actually make them feel better, and that they aren't ordinary regular people who do ordinary regular things to make themselves feel better. They need to work out and do like a juice cleanse and get jacked, and that will be something to like focus on and get them through this. It's so good, you guys. So we go to Nathaniel's apartment because he's got this machine, the Bowflex 3000, I think he says. I'm going to try and find the thing because Shredflex. The Shredflex 5000. I've been trying to get that in my gym and it has been on back order forever. And he says, well, I have it in matte black. And he says, like the Batmobile. And he says, yes, let's do this. Let's do a 7-day cleanse, shred and flex our way into the best shape of our lives. That'll make us feel great. And they pick up their fries and they throw them on the ground. And Heather is so over them already because they tried to pretend they didn't order fries. And she's like, yes, you fucking did, because she is the agent of truth in this show. And then when they throw these on the ground, she's just like, seriously? And they both are just like, yeah, you're right. Sorry. And immediately like bend down and begin picking them up. It's amazing. I just love it so much. So when we go to Nathaniel's apartment, Josh is on this fucking contraption that is covered in spikes. This thing it's so good. I really want to know who like designed this thing. It looks like it has to be just like a regular Blowflex machine that they spray painted and then did a whole thing. And he is mocking White Josh, who is the one who's doing his presses right now, by calling him whatever the like mean nickname was that the kids used. You pudgy little blubberball, Mr. Tubby Tubster. And that is what gets Josh the rest of the way to doing his reps here. And then it's Nathaniel's turn. And White Josh screams at him, maybe if you lost some of that disgusting fat, it would make your daddy finally love you. The whole thing is so horrifying. It's so awful. And yet they're both very pleased with one another. They are both like, it seems like they have found like their bestie, you know? This is a moment, guys. I love it so much. So then we have them each measuring their body fat to see what kind of progress they've made. And they decide that they are in the best shape they've ever been in because their body fat's lower than it's ever been. And so they're going to go out on the town to celebrate and show off their physiques. And they go to a gay bar, which White Josh says is good for both of them because for him there's lots of gay men. And for Nathaniel, there's lots of straight women for bachelorette parties who show up and pretty much completely ruin the scene for gay men, which I have heard this from a lot of gay men before. And it's such a frustrating thing because on the one hand, I totally understand as a woman wanting to go somewhere where you are going to not feel threatened. Like, you know, when you're surrounded by heterosexual men, often they can feel predatory. Even if that's not actually what's happening, you feel threatened. And so going somewhere to get really wasted, that you aren't feeling like you need to constantly watch your drink, that you don't feel like that dynamic is the predominant dynamic. I understand that. At the same time, gay men want a place that is theirs and not being like, you know, sullied. Sullied's the wrong word, but it's just they are making it about them. These mostly straight women are coming in and centering themselves in what should be the gay men's space. And he's just tired of it. And honestly, that must be very exhausting. So they go inside and they're each actually doing pretty well, all things considered, in terms of like having people hit on them that they each find attractive and are the goal of going out and showing off their physiques and getting hit on is coming to fruition. But then they realize that they don't want to go home with the people that are hitting on them. They're not actually interested. And finally they admit they've been dumped. They admit it. And at this point they order some onion rings and they get sad. And this girl comes up to them and tells them she's the bride and she's here with her maid of honor. And she's like, I'm getting married. She's wearing a sash that says whore on it. You guys are killing the vibe in here. And she's like really snotty to them. Josh yells at her about their straight bars everywhere. And she says, what's their problem? And her maid of honor says, they don't have problems. Do you see how hot they are? Guys like this don't have real problems. And then she walks away. And this leaves the two of them really annoyed. and they say, no one understands. And then they look up at the stage and they see these two dudes who are dancing in their underwear. And the two of them look at each other and look up there and they're like, huh. And then we go to fit hot guys have problems too, which is probably in my top 5 favorite songs this show has ever done. It's partially because there are hot guys half naked dancing, certainly, but also it's just so well done. The whole thing is so well done. I love everything about how they're like stripping for everybody, but telling them not to look at them because they're not dancing for them. It's so good. When we exit a pool, we do it in slow motion, but that doesn't mean we can't complain. 'Cause hot guys have problems too. Don't look at us. We're not dancing for you. This is our quiet personal time to reflect. Oh God, I love this so much. We both have almost no body fat, but we're too bummed to talk about that. I know we look so much better than you, but hot guys have problems too. And they are like doing these like hip thrusts as they're like starting to cry. And then Josh begins to come out and they both notice and they're like, oh shit, what? And I love this, that Josh looks over at them and White Josh says something like, are you really here? Almost like he thinks that this is like a product of his fevered mind. I don't know what he thinks. But Josh is like, yeah, I am. And he's like, well, do you want to get in on this thing with us? And he's just like, okay, yeah. So he gets in on the whole like dance. You want to join our imaginary song and dance? And the three of them do this whole routine. And again, I just need to say how incredibly unprepared I was, because he, like I said, he's more jacked than the two of them when you look at his abs, his chest, his arms. But he's wearing very baggy pants, the fireman pants. So even though I'm like already like, oh shit, I think he's even more cut than the other two. I still wasn't quite ready, but we'll express it so much better without these pants. So they rip their pants off and we go to, and Josh's thighs. Y'all, he looks like a fucking statue. He looks like a sculpture. It's insane. It's insane. I love too that they're all like still in their socks and sneakers. Like Josh doesn't have sneakers on or doesn't have socks on. I feel like he came more prepared for the look that he wanted if he took his pants off, because he was going to be taking his pants off. But the other two are just wearing their like, calf high socks that are just don't look great with underwear. It's really funny. And so then they talk about how it's going to be time to ugly cry, and they all just sort of begin to dissolve into tears and crumple down on the stage and sob. And it is amazing. It's amazing. And then we cut to all three of them at the bar drinking and crying with more onion rings. I love it so much, you guys. I loved it so much. There's so much good about it. I love Nathaniel and White Josh becoming friends. I love them like both having gone through being dumped at the same time, and the way that this worked out, and also Josh just being sad because his life isn't what he thought. I love like these men getting to express these emotions on this show in a way that's like not being mocked. It's more being mocked at how long it takes for them to get here and just admit they're sad, It's just so good. So yeah, I had to watch this episode by myself because Owen, like, he didn't have time to watch it with me beforehand. Usually he's like all over it. And I can't wait to watch this one with him because I think that dance, he's going to find it really, really amusing. So I'm going to have to wrap up, But thank you guys all so much for hanging out with me in the chat. Thank you, Megan, very much for commissioning this episode. I can't wait for the next one. And yeah, I will see you soon. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.